I went out and I actually asked a couple of different agencies if I can interview somebody from their agency just to get a better idea of what PR is like and what to expect in the industry. And, I kept in touch with those people that I interviewed. I talked with them. I actually had my notes and everything. And sure enough, a couple of months later, a year later, they were asking me if I was looking for an internship. So I don't know. It's a good way just to get your foot in the door.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So leading on to my next question. Give me one moment. It's kind of glitching here. How do I sell myself if I don't have much experience in the particular industry, which I feel like that's kind of something we already kind of discussed before with the previous questions, but is there anything else that y'all would like to add on to this?
So, I mean, I think you could look at this question with, I think Christina mentioned, it could be that you're very interested in the nonprofit or DE&I space. And so it may not be so much, and you've gotten to internship, at an agency, but you did different work. I think if you're passionate of a specific industry, energy, renewables, or technology, DE&I, get to know that specific vertical and what are the reporters and the trade publications. And so introduce yourself by, you can Google a lot of the industry and look up news stories. You can actually follow a lot of these industries in LinkedIn. So if you do a hashtag search in LinkedIn for DE&I, there's people that you can follow. There's also the hashtag itself, and so it'll show up on your feed. I follow a lot in the ESG space. I want to know what people are talking about in that space. And so if it's not just the communications or PR space, but the vertical that you want to do, like somebody wants to do sports or entertainment PR. Okay, well, are you following the right people? Are you reading the right types of news articles? Get yourself engaged. And I think that sometimes you can bring during the interview or at the hiring, the idea that I don't have a ton of experience in communications. I did this in school, but I'm following all these trendsetters and I know what the news media is writing about in this industry. That brings a lot of value to the company.
Let me add skills, just in general, how they transfer over. I don't know, maybe you were a manager at a gas station or at a CC's Pizza or something, the organizational skills, leadership skills, just how that transfers over into the PR industry, whether it be agency, in-house, or your own business. I think that's something very important to always consider. Just any skill set that you have and how it'll transfer over.
And just to add to Saul's, honestly, even working in fast food or in grocery retail, if we've all seen it, there's a mouse at a Jack in a Box, or the power went out and the HEB manager let everybody have their groceries for free. That person was probably not trained in communications. Neither was the manager at a fast food retail when they had a fight happening and the media shows up. But those skill sets are very important. So even if you're thinking of getting a part-time job through school, you're going to use those communication skills in everything that you do. And so it's now with social media, we know that almost every industry or every manager role or just employee in general should have a little bit of training in comms because of crisis, right? And social media makes a crisis that nobody would have heard of. This just, go viral. And then all of a sudden now you do need a crisis communicator. So definitely that does bring skills. So I agree with Saul on that one.
That reminds me, someone once asked me, they were like, I used to work at McDonald's for like 4 years. I don't understand how that's beneficial when going into PR. And I'm like, girl, you did some customer service right there. And what do you think you do in PR? Lots of client calls and whatnot, making sure you're meeting their needs. So I'm like, that's beneficial. Don't downgrade your experience at McDonald's. So I definitely agree with that. And I can't imagine an idea of like a mouse in a market. Oh my goodness, that is some crisis communication right there that you would need to handle for sure. It can be crazy sometimes.
Yeah, going back to the McDonald's example, Claire said, like, the communications team for McDonald's is humongous around the world. So, coming with that experience.
Absolutely.
But going back to skills too, like there was a question in the chat asking about side hustles and how we feel about side hustles as part of skills that may be transferable. And I would say, like, I see that a lot in terms of looking at resumes from younger talent. And I have a lot of respect for that, because in your side hustle, you may be doing your own social, your digital, your blogs, your retailing, selling from your house, things like that. And I think that shows a lot of organization, a lot of passion. Again, it goes back to character. So feel free to bring those examples forward.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much. Now we're moving on to our next question here. Give me one. So what is the best way to ensure my resume or application gets noticed? And when is the appropriate time to follow up?
This is a very loaded question.
Definitely. I see y'all like, oh man.
Well, I mean, I think with the world of talent acquisition has changed dramatically with AI. And, you know, in the past, it was like you just had to have, you know, the best formatted and prettiest resume and show all those skills and experience so that the recruiter would see it and put it to the top of the pile. And honestly, your resume can be the best. If you didn't have the right SEO, or you had something incorrect, or your formatting was too fancy, the AI system is spitting you out and the recruiter never even sees you. And so that has really changed the game. And I have said, and you know, I've experienced it myself as as a professional with many years of experience, knowing that I'm applying for positions that I'm qualified at. And you know, the last when I joined Emerson, what got me through the door was a referral from a former or a colleague at PRSA who worked in the organization, and that brought me into the interview. And I would say that is by far sometimes the only way to get your resume viewed. If it's a job that, you know, it says 500 applicants, you know, that's why you know, there are some tips and tricks that you can do to make sure your resume has SEO and all that stuff. But a lot of the times you need that referral link, or you need someone who knows who's on the inside, who can help at least get your resume noticed. That's a really loaded question. And I would love to hear from the group because it's definitely different than when I started my career early on.
I'll piggyback off of Amelia and talk about how difficult it is finding a job online, in-house, or for agencies because of the SEO factor. At this point in my career, more often, if I'm asked to work in-house, or if I'm given a client, it's through a referral. I firmly believe in relational marketing. And as publicists, again, this is about our brand. Last summer, it really hit me hard how much of a brand I was when crisis communication happened with race relations in this country. I really didn't understand that was how much what people knew me for, and for academic writing in those spaces as well. So, and leading executives to speak about this, giving them their talking points. They have to talk in town halls. So the game has changed. Like Amelia said, the game has changed dramatically. And the best way to ensure you're being noticed is to, again, talk about your skill sets in your resume, separate your communication experience and how whatever you've done before applies. That way we can see, maybe you haven't had a job in an agency or in-house or working for a radio or TV station, but maybe you've had, you know, that McDonald's experience and that crisis that happened that lets me know, hey, you know, this is something to look at. This person can handle anything that comes, you know, any kind of just catastrophic event. I know that I can trust them to handle this. And as far as the appropriate time to follow up, oftentimes with jobs, again, the game's different now. They'll tell you when the job posting is going to close. So at that time, I would say 2 weeks after that is when you should start. Hey, I've applied. Is there any, feedback? Is there any, movement in this position, or has it already gone to an internal candidate, right? Which is also a huge problem when it comes to communication managers and trying to get your foot in the door. But again, that'll go to somebody who has worked on their brand, who has those networks. So I would definitely recommend making friends. I am always making friends on LinkedIn. That way they can refer me as well, because we've spoken on a panel together. They know how passionate I am. They follow my social media, or they've read something I wrote. And that's what makes the difference. So the best way to get noticed is to really be proactive. And go all in. People can be self-conscious, but like I said, in this day and age, a lot can fly, and you can really make a lot of traction by doing things on your own and being proactive.
And I would only add, I think Christina touched on it, but I think it's not only thinking about resume and application, it's really thinking about your brand as a whole, with your network, with your LinkedIn, with just the people and sometimes if you know somebody within that organization, pinging them hey, I applied, just in case you can do anything about it, but it's a 360 approach, almost thinking about it through every single channel.
And would y'all say that you do check your cover letters when these resumes get submitted? I've heard many mixed answers regarding this question, so I'm curious to know from you four.
Yeah, I would say for that, of course, it depends on the company, because some companies don't even allow you to upload more than one document. Most do, but some don't. So if you do get the chance to add a cover letter or a referral letter, go ahead and do it specifically for that company and that position. And it's just another way to try to make yourself stand out. But I don't know if the team feels any differently on that.
Yeah, and I would actually need to do the research, right? And actually survey recruiters and talent acquisitions professionals. But I believe cover letters are the bane of my existence. And I will tell you, of every job I've had in the last 15 years, not a single one of those jobs relied on a cover letter. Actually, I'm pretty sure I did not submit one for both Emerson and Workiva. And I got those jobs through either referral or connection or just my online resume, my LinkedIn. But I have applied for jobs that require it. And you wonder, are they even going to read it? Why am I wasting my time when everything that I want to say is in my resume or in my LinkedIn profile? Because in your LinkedIn profile, you can really kind of expand on things. So I am not a fan, but I have no idea if they make or break jobs. So I would not say don't do it. I think Ali's suggestion is that if you have the opportunity, you probably should, or don't miss it, but I'm not a fan.
That's all right, thank you. Christina Saud.
Cover letters aren't my favorite, but I do understand their appeal when it comes to people who have not had enough experience in communication. So that cover letter can explain, hey, I was a caregiver because my grandmother has Alzheimer's. So I have not been able to focus on a communication internship, but this is what I've done. And this is how I've taken care of my grandmother, because I'm facilitating all the communication with their doctors. I'm facilitating, everything that goes with note taking and everything that has to go with that follow-up. And again, how that applies. Cover letters, again, not my favorite, but it does allow you that space to tell your story.
Never been on the other side. I hate writing cover letters though.
They're very time consuming.
I definitely understand. And there have been instances where I'm like, man, there's so much you want to share in a cover letter, but at the same time, you don't want to repeat yourself from your resume, because you already have all the content on your resume. What more can you expand on? So I sometimes struggle truthfully, should I make it more kind of like a story storytelling thing where I just explain more about myself and my passions and why I want to be with this agency or company. So I can definitely understand, like, from students' perspective, because there's always questions regarding like, how do you do a cover letter and how can I make sure it's successful? When really it's like, are recruiters really checking their cover letters? Are they even a fan? It's just kind of like the whole thing regarding like, you just want to be that one applicant that stands out. So it's definitely a bit of a tough market that we're trying to break through here.
I think the most important thing, and to me, well, to me, it's one of the most important things. I'll put it that way. Networking, it makes a big difference. You know, I'm not saying it's who you know, it is what you know, but you know, who you know definitely helps out.
Absolutely. And before we move forward, we do have a question here from our audience. They ask, how can employers and students best get connected? Where and what type of ways are there to get your foot in the door? Are job fairs the best? Networking events? And what about for those who are not so natural at networking, who are more on the introverted side? Definitely a loaded question, but we're curious to know. I keep doing that, I apologize, y'all.
Volunteer at boards, volunteer in different organizations. Just ask questions. I mean, it doesn't have to be in person if you're more introverted. I'll say this, I'm not a shy person, but that first conversation or the first time I meet somebody, I'm definitely not going to talk too much. I'm going to, I'm the type of person that I sit back and I like to analyze the playing field before I jump in. So, you know, ask them a question over email, send them a message on LinkedIn, and just start that interaction. Tell them, hey, I'm a PR student, or hey, I'm a comm student, or maybe I'm a business student and I have interest in communications, so on and so forth. And I just want to see what pointers you can give me, any ideas, any recommendations. I mean, I joined PRSSA like that. I joined PRSA like that. I joined HPRA when Amelia reached out to me, and yeah, I mean, that's how it's worked out for me.
I would definitely recommend going to LinkedIn and typing in the search bar HR recruiter and your location. It is going to pull up all the HR people in your area that you can directly just connect with on LinkedIn. And when you send them that friend request to connect, you can always put in a little message right there saying, I'm going to graduate in 2021. This is my skill set. I'm looking to see if there's any positions available at your organization. I've even gotten clients that way, not purposely as a marketing tactic, trying to gain new business. I was just trying to be friendly. Again, I like making friends. So I was just adding HR people because oftentimes PR and HR can have that overlap when we talk about culture for an organization or employee resource groups, for example. Excuse me. And joining on LinkedIn is a very simple, easy way, low risk for you to already initiate that relationship.
Yeah, and I would add that, you know, similar to what Saul was saying, because he tries things, you can always, like, if you have a list of the top companies you're trying to get into or an industry, you know, look them up on LinkedIn, look up the organization and look up who the communications manager is and reach out and ask, hey, would you mind a 15-minute informational interview? A lot of people, and I think communicators especially, are always welcome the opportunity, always want to have the opportunity to help a new graduate find that role. And they may not have a job opportunity to offer you, but they will tell you anything you ask. They will share about the organization, what you need to do. And they may turn around and say, oh, and you know, I know someone at such and such company. Let me get you in touch with them. I know they're looking for someone. So, you know, you do have to break a little bit out of your shell if you're shy or introverted, but you know, the tools are there with LinkedIn and then of course, HPRA. I think Audrey would agree that if you reached out to any HPRA member, especially here in Texas, that all of us would raise our hand and say, yes, we'd be willing to talk to that individual and help them. And as a board member at PRSA, I would say the exact same thing. So I think, and there's, you know, Austin Women Communicators, there's Austin Marketing Association, there's IABC, there's a zillion Digital Marketers of Austin, there's a zillion organizations. And I'm sure that if you look on their website, look for their board members and send an email and say, hey, I'm about to graduate, I'm looking for information, or just HPRA. But I know that those board members, I mean, they're volunteers. They're already saying, we want to help. So who's a board member that's going to say, oh, but we're not going to help you? So I would say, reach out to those organizations or a company and asking for an informational interview.
Awesome, thanks, y'all. Now going on to my next question. I kept going back and forth because I was fixing my screen, but I apologize. The next one is, how do I introduce myself to prospective employers if they aren't looking? So for me, sometimes what I would do, sometimes I like to go through LinkedIn and ask for recruiters to see if they would like to do a virtual coffee session with me, because we're in COVID times. But what are other ways that you find is a lot more beneficial?
I'm gonna go with interviewing them. I think, tying back to what I mentioned earlier, what Amelia just mentioned, just talking to them, telling them, hey, I want to learn more about your organization. I want to learn more about what you guys are doing. Any ideas that you guys have, any recommendations, basically just go from that, and you start breaking into that bubble. I think maybe don't always go immediately for, hey, I'm looking for a job, because some of them will be like, okay, I don't have a job, so I'm not gonna be able to talk to you, or I'm not gonna be able to give you too much. But if you ask for information, just general information about their organization, I mean, even if you do research beforehand and tell them, oh yeah, I read this about you guys, and I think it's amazing what you guys are doing. I don't know, maybe they ran a campaign that you really liked, and you just want to congratulate them on that. Just use that as that icebreaker and go from there.
Thank you so much. Anyone else?
And I would add, because I like the thinking about like using those excuses, like those moments as excuses to connect with someone. And maybe if you do start forming a relationship with them, and if you apply to a job, and if they gave you a reference, like also follow up to like follow through, like telling them, I did get the job, or I didn't, but thank you so much for the help. Like, I think that's also a touch that will help you continue fostering that relationship long term. And again, in our industry, it's all about relationships. So it goes a long way.
And you may not think that people remember you, but they will remember you from those times before. I have definitely circled back. I moved back to Houston after being in Philadelphia for 10 years. And I've circled back to the people that I worked with on the radio, TV here in Houston, and positions that I didn't get, thinking that they wouldn't remember me, or, feeling shame because I didn't get the position. And they immediately responded with, oh, I remember you. Of course I remember you, and was able to rebuild that relationship and connect again. And it was unfortunately now during COVID, so we haven't yet been able to meet face to face. But again, circling back, like Alejandra said, and going back to those relationships and maintaining those relationships, right? They need care. They don't just happen, right? People need that constant attention and just a touch saying, hey, this is what I'm doing now. All of us get caught up in our lives, and sometimes we forget about what's going on in other people's lives. And it's always a wonderful reminder for people to come back, circle back and saying, hey, this is what I'm up to now. What are you up to? And to see if there's any kind of overlap or any kind of intersection where y'all can work together again in any kind of capacity, or if you could be a mentor to them. I'm a big fan of that. I know a lot of my mentors and I stay in touch, and I've been really fortunate to have their guidance and to have them prefer me with referrals and reference letters, because I'm not sure if I'm going to go for my PhD or not in communications. So maintaining in touch is really important, and you never know what doors that could open for y'all in the future. So I'm a big fan. Stay in touch.
Yeah, and I would say just, this is the upside of the pandemic. Now you can do it with a quick 15-minute virtual call and with video. And yes, it's not ideal, but I remember that, scheduling that face-to-face informational interview took a lot more effort. That individual had to spend, even if it was 20 minutes, they were really, it's really 45 minutes of their day, to kind of break what they're doing. Now you really can just get somebody for 15 minutes. And that's easier for someone that you maybe don't know to say, yeah, I can spend 15 minutes. Just, let's set up a Zoom call or Google Meetup. And that makes it a little bit easier. So that's the upside of the pandemic. And I don't really see that going away completely post-pandemic. I think we are a society that now has learned to integrate the virtual space into our day-to-day lives.
Absolutely, I definitely agree. So I'm going to go on to my next question here. Oh, well, that's about it. But let me go ahead and stop my sharing because I do have some follow-up questions for y'all. Because, yeah, so I was wondering, how we talked briefly about how to stand out regarding like your application, whether it be resume, cover letter, no cover letter. One question that I always get asked by PRSSA members, and this can go for all undergrad and grad students, is what kind of resume format is appropriate to submit? I know it usually all depends on what you're applying to, whether it be like a creative agency, maybe some kind of tech firm that they're going for. That's kind of one thing that I often wonder myself too, is what kind of resume template do y'all find most appropriate or most appealing? It's kind of a broad question, but I hope y'all understand where I'm coming from here. Do y'all like the funky cool colors and fonts and prints? I'm curious to know.
Well, I think they look beautiful, but they do not work when you're submitting through an AI system. I had a plain Word document that was heavy on text, and this was several years ago, and somebody's like, you need to kind of refresh your look. So I went with like the colored column, even my picture, and I had like text bar breaks, and I found out that when I was submitting it, especially if I PDF'd it, the systems weren't reading it. So I finally actually had a recruiter say, I looked at your LinkedIn profile, but because I couldn't read your resume. And I thought, what? So that's the thing. If you have your own like website or something, maybe make it beautiful there. But at the end of the day, when you're submitting to an AI system, plain text.
Yes, absolutely. How about the rest?
I agree. My experience has been best with plain text. If you're going to make a very nice version of it with any designs that you might have and you want to showcase that in your resume, sure, post that on LinkedIn where actual people will go out there and see it. Do it on your website, do it on anything like that. But when you're submitting the resume, at least if it's a bigger organization, plain text definitely works.
Absolutely. Christina, Alejandra? No pressure.
No, agree. I think like if it's an in-person, like, it's always nice to have a beautiful, presentable, designed resume. But yeah, for the computer entries, like which we're all doing, I think less is more.
Agreed. As long as you can keep it to, your resume should explain what you're doing, but your LinkedIn should highlight it. That way you're not reading the same thing twice. And that way, if I'm, social media, it should be quick. I should be able to look at something and understand very succinctly what it is you're trying to tell me and what you've done with your career. Your resume is going to explain to me and fill that out. So I would definitely say your resume should not be, as a graduate, should be no longer than 2 pages, because anything longer than that, I'm going to start to wonder, what other positions have you done? Are you padding your resume so that it'll be longer? And really, is that going to even help your cause? Because now I'm reading so much more. I've forgotten what applies to this position now. So I would say keep it short and sweet and sell yourself like we pitch everything else.
Thank you all so much. And I apologize, I know we're going a little over time. We're supposed to end at 5:45. But my last question would be, and this is a simple, sweet advice for our upcoming seniors or those looking for internships very soon or jobs. What advice can you give them right now with these ever-changing times that we're in now that we're on a vaccine rollout? Like, what now? What kind of advice would y'all give?
Well, I'll speak for Audrey. Join HPRA right now, get on our WhatsApp group, and you will meet people, because we're posting jobs on our channels. I think like 2 or 3 a day, because right now is the perfect time to apply for a job. So do that.
And would you recommend that we have our undergrads, grad students set up a virtual call with y'all, since that's something we talked about before?
Yeah, and I think, you have all of us from, I'm in tech. Christina is an expert in DE&I and executive communications. Ale is at PepsiCo. She's worked at Fleischmann. Saul is working at the city. He's done litigation PR. So we're all so different. So just pick your flavor.
Absolutely. Anyone else?
I would say too, give yourself grace. I mean, I know it's hard to apply for jobs and finish up school and then just decide what to do next. Like that just seems like a big question. It did for me back then. But so give yourself grace and time and do what you can.
Agreed. There's a lot going on, and with social media, it can sometimes be challenging not to compare your journey to somebody else's, especially when social media can be deceiving, right? And everybody would know that. Nobody would know that better than us.
Oh, amen, sister. Oh,
It can be deceiving, and you can get caught up in everybody else's journey. Focus on your journey and understand that there's so many different facets to communication and so many different ways you can go. I would have never thought that I would have ended up in the nonprofit and Amelia said, the executive communication space. I do have a passion for organizational communication, and I did go into academia as well to get a Master of Science in Communication because I enjoy the psychology aspect behind it. I think that that's what makes me better at pitching and better at sales and better at marketing and getting people to buy into my stories. So don't be afraid to explore PR and everything that it has to offer. And again, just focus on your journey.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christina.
I think one piece of advice I'd give is, in my experience, I'm very closed off on my social media accounts. I don't really accept people. I don't like, I have them all private for the most part. I would say maybe create a social media account that you're gonna have for the public and showcase your talent there. You have so much talent, especially as students, you're able to expand in so many different areas. You're able to ask questions to your professors, other students, showcase your talent, work on new things. That way, when you do have a possible employer that's going to be looking at your social media account, they're able to find that and they're able to see all the work that you've done. It might not be, I don't know, it might not be the deal breaker, but it'll definitely be something that adds to your resume, adds to your networking, and adds to your possible employments.
Thank y'all so much. I don't have any other further questions, but maybe hand out to our audience. If y'all have any other questions, feel free to add them in. I found this so beneficial. Thank y'all so much. And it's my last semester, so now it's like you're onto the real world. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. So I found this so beneficial and useful, and it's just kind of like a nice reminder just to take it easy. I feel like everyone's kind of on their own different journey and kind of just figuring out what now, especially during these weird, funky times that we're in. But know that I truly appreciate y'all. This is amazing.
Let me add one last thing, sorry. Apply for a lot of jobs, interview, even if it's not a job in an area that you specifically want, interview. That way you get that interview experience and you start seeing what the employer is looking for.
yeah, it's practice, practice, practice. I mentioned a similar, just apply. And right now that's, it's a quantity versus quality game when it comes to, submissions. So apply for everything and you don't have to qualify 100%. I will tell you that just some job recs, they want the moon and back, and they're going to, put the person as a manager. And it's like, they're looking for a VP, but I think there's a disjointed of like, they want everything. They don't realize what this field does. I'm sure your clients do that to you, Christina, but That's okay. Apply, apply, apply. Practice, practice, practice.
For sure.
And also, if I may add, remember that also you have value. You're the prize, right? You're out here, you're the mouthpiece for everybody. You're the image, you're the face in front of the camera for the client, and you are just as valuable as the organization is themselves. So don't be afraid to remember that you are interviewing the organization themselves as well. It might not be a good culture fit. And as much as you might want that job, is it worth your mental health to be in a toxic environment that doesn't understand what PR is or the role it plays in an organization? Might not be worth it. I even have a clause in my contracts with clients if they don't understand, and I will cancel the contract. It will be null and void if we start to argue over what my role is, because at that point you don't understand the value. So remember that you are also the prize here. It's not just the organization and the job. You have tremendous value, and to invest and bet on yourselves.
Thank you so much. With that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and call this an afternoon. I was about to say evening. Well, we're evening now, but oh man, I'm like, I know my times, hold up. But before we go ahead and log off, is it okay if I can take a screenshot of this panel so we can share for our HPRA Texas social media? Awesome. So I'm going to screenshot this. So do a small countdown. 3, 2, 1. Awesome. Thank you all so much. We already got the photo, but I can go ahead and share that to y'all too. Thank you all so much for sharing this wonderful advice to not only me, even though I was the host, but to all our undergraduates who were here with us today. Just know that we really appreciate it, and we look forward to just seeing where we go from here on out. To our panelists, know that this recording of this Charla will be sent to you, as well as the slides you can share with your network. And of course, we're going to do the same for HPRA Texas, so no worries. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and call it off. Thank you all so much. I hope you all have a wonderful evening.
Thanks. It was great. Have a good day, everybody, and good luck.
Absolutely. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.